Start of the story, Maya and Abhishek were employees. They're mid-40s and they had two children who were set to start college in about 4 years. So on the outside, they looked like any prosperous family. They had a nice home with two new cars. Abhishek had a good job, better than any job anyone in his family had ever had. He was a manager who supervised a workforce of about 30 people. But below the surface bubbled a problem that threatened everything. Abhishek was an employee. He was worried about his financial situation every time he looked at the balance that was due on his credit card. He worried about it whenever he thought of college tuitions and retirement, for which he had nothing saved. He worried about it every time his company closed a division. In a panic, he began working himself harder and indulging in the lifestyle of the rich on weekends. He had his family's best interest at heart. He spent his leisure time either golfing with prospective clients or taking his boss out. During these outings, Abhishek got lots of hot tips in the stock market. The people he spent time with looked prosperous, and so he felt that they should know what they are talking about. Abhishek had already gambled on a few tips and lost more than he had ever made. His panic grew. In one bold move, he decided to take a third loan on his house, a third mortgage, and put it all in a pre-IPO. The offering failed and he lost everything. Maya felt pressure in a different way. She struggled in a job that she didn't like, working as a secretary in a position with no opportunity for advancement. She felt guilty for the time spent away from her children, and she tried to compensate that by making sure they had everything they needed. She was tired a lot and she couldn't understand Abhishek's panic. She didn't want to know about money. She had never been good at numbers and she left the finances up to her husband. Abhishek's salary was 15 lakhs a year and netted him about 1 lakh a month. Maya's salary as a secretary was about 6 lakhs a year and netted her about 42,500 a month. Their monthly expenses were as follows. Their taxes of about 32,500. They had 3 credit cards with a balance of 1,50,000, which required a minimum payment of 7,300. The second one with a balance of 1,20,000, which required a minimum payment of 6,300. And the third with a balance of 90,000, which required a payment of 3,900. They had 2 cars, and for which each they paid an EMI of 8,500 and 6,100 each. They paid for sports and music lessons that cost them 7,500. Food and entertainment cost them about 18,000 a month. Other living costs of 13,500 and mortgage payment of 79,000. Their total expenses of 1,50,100. Now, where were Maya and Abhishek and where did they want to get to? Maya and Abhishek had the worst cash flow pattern of the middle class. No true assets and liabilities added to cover expenses. Abhishek wanted very badly to be rich. Maya wanted security and comfort. After looking at the financial story, they agreed that they were neither rich, comfortable, or secure. In fact, they were steamrolling down the path to financial ruin. They knew what they were doing was wrong, but until they corrected it, they reasoned they wouldn't know what their goals were. Without an agreement on those goals, they decided not to discuss financial matters. Analysis of Maya and Abhishek's financial statement. How much did Maya and Abhishek keep? Total monthly income was 1,75,000 less the total monthly expenses, which was 1,82,600. Which means they actually lost 7,600 rupees every month. The percentage of income they kept was minus 4%. Did their money work for them? They had a total monthly income of 1,75,000. Their total earned income of 1,75,000. So total passive and portfolio income was 0 and the percentage of passive and portfolio income was 0%. So their money did not work for them. What was their income after taxes? They had a total income of 1,75,000. They paid taxes every month of 32,500. That left them with a net income of 1,42,500. Now the percentage of gross income that they paid in taxes was 18.57%. How much did they spend on housing? Their total housing cost was 79,000 rupees, which as a percentage of their income was 55%. How much did they spend on non-performing assets? Their total luxuries were 1 crore 2 lakhs and 50,000. Their total assets as per bankers was 1 crore and 5 lakhs, which means their non-performing assets was 98%. What was the return on assets? They had no assets and no passive income, so there was no return on assets. How wealthy were they? Their total assets were 2,50,000. They had total expenses of 1,82,600. Maya and Abhishek were 1 month rich. If they quit their job, they could survive only for 1 month. Maya and Abhishek's 5-year plan. Abhishek had always been his own financial advisor and tax preparer. He was smarter than anyone else he knew and trusted himself more than he trusted even his own CA. Abhishek also had a tough time trusting financial advisors. While Maya and Abhishek had still not agreed on an ultimate financial goal, they did agree that they had too much debt. With the pressure mounting, they decided to pursue the following 5-year goal. Number 1, to establish a 5-year debt reduction plan. Number 2, to find a CA to review their tax records and prepare their tax returns if necessary. And finally, to build an asset reserve, conservatively invested, so that eventually, if needed, they would have 3 months worth of expenses put aside. Now, how did Maya and Abhishek do? Having agreed to cut expenses wherever possible, Maya and Abhishek were successful in following their debt reduction plan. The going was slow, but eventually they were able to eliminate all their consumer debt. By the end of the 5th year, by the middle of the 5th year, they were able to start building their security fund. Finally realizing that he didn't have all the answers, Abhishek made an appointment with the local CA for tax advice. The CA discovered a number of deductions related to past expenses that Abhishek had not taken. He filed an amended tax return. Although Maya and Abhishek did not get immediate tax relief, but now they had carryover expenses that they could use when they began making portfolio income. Moreover, Abhishek had not correctly reported a large capital loss and bad investments. The loss reported in an amended return would reduce his taxable income by 3 lakh per year until it was completely used up. Meanwhile, having almost completed the debt reduction program, Abhishek felt the need to play catch up. A college buddy of his had a friend who worked in a bank. Now, there was a rumor flying around in the bank that a local company, whose shares were listed at a very nominal rate, or what we call penny stocks, was being quoted by a larger company on the Bombay Stock Exchange. So if that smaller company was acquired by the bigger company, the smaller company's stocks, which are currently trading at, small amounts, would suddenly go through the roof and would be worth hundreds, maybe thousands of rupees. Now, Abhishek and his friends reasoned that surely a banker would know what he's talking about. Here, finally, was a good advisor, thought Abhishek. So he took his security fund of 2,50,000, and with a cash advance of 7,50,000 on his credit card, he bought 20,000 units of that stock. By then, however, a lot of people had got wind of this rumor, and the stock that was worth at 10 rupees climbed up to about 50 rupees by the time Abhishek bought his 20,000 shares. He was actually encouraged by this sudden surge. He felt that this must prove it's a good investment. That hoped-for deal never came. He heard the news while he was at work, and since it was a busy day, he was not able to get down to his computer and sell off the stock till the next day. And by that time, the stock was trading at just $5. His 10 lakh investment came to less than 1 lakh. His and Maya's security fund had plunged to 1 lakh rupees, and now he owed 7,50,000 rupees on his credit card, a credit card that had been paid off. So how wealthy had they become? Their total assets were 3 lakh rupees, their total expenses were 1,38,501. So Maya and Abhishek were 2 months wealthy. That means that they could quit their jobs and survive for just 2 months. So what's next for Maya and Abhishek? Maya and Abhishek have finally had an honest discussion about their financial future. Abhishek still wants to be rich, but he has heard Maya's concerns and acknowledged her need for security. They know that they can eliminate the debt, the new debt, just like they've done before. They've lost a lot of ground, but Maya is more comfortable now that she knows where they stand. She and Abhishek have vowed to review the financial situation every month and look at the progress that they've made. But unless progress is made, Maya and Abhishek cannot become investors. They will remain as employees. That's the end of part 1 of the case studies module. Carry on to part number 2, where we look at another 2 sets of couples and see how they did. I'll see you there.